Hello and welcome to my channel, I Win to Lose Gaming. Today, we are here to take a look at an early access video for Yuzuha, the next upcoming S-Rank agent in Zenless Zone Zero. Now, unfortunately, I am both sick and got a bad haircut, so that is why I both sound like crap and look like crap at the same time. And those aren't good excuses for not making this video. And also, we can actually see a significant height discrepancy between Yuzuha as well as Jufufu. Never really thought about that myself until just now. And there's also one really neat detail that they put into Yuzuha's costume here. You can see that the raccoon is actually wearing a new outfit, looking like it's ready to hit the beach like Yuzuha is. So an absolutely a great costume, and I gotta be honest, I think this costume is power creeping costumes in Zenless Zone Zero. Now, what is Yuzuha all about? Yuzuha is a physical support agent who specializes in providing a large attack buff as well as anomaly related buffs. And she does a lot of stuff for Anomaly teams, so we're going to check out her kit in a bit. But first, before we do that, let's take a look at a quick animation showcase. This video was filmed on the early access server and is not indicative of the final product. There may be some changes on release, so be sure to check the comments down below to see if there are any. Alright, let's talk about Yuzuha's kit, and I'm going to try to keep this as simple as possible because unfortunately it is both extremely simple and extremely complicated when it comes to her kit. Basically, all you really need to do with Yuzuha, and this might sound familiar to those of you who have used Astra Yao, is you just have to hit the enemy with her EX special or ultimate, but most of the time EX special, in order to activate this additional ability, which are these additional DOT effects or damage over time effects. And we can see here that it's actually building up the physical anomaly gauge. And what if we actually hit the enemy with an electric attack? We can now see that it is now dealing electric anomaly ticks, building up the electric anomaly gauge. So not only does she apply, of course, physical anomaly, she also applies the anomaly of the element of the next character to deal damage that matches their elements. In this case, in this example, I used Yanagi, but she also provides the entire team up to 1,200 attack, as well as up to 15% additional damage. And where is that attack buff coming from? Well, basically when she hits an enemy with her EX special or ultimate, then her entire team will get the Tanuki Wish, which grants an attack buff equal to 40% of Yuzuha's attack. So basically, if you have 3,000 attack on Yuzuha prior to going into combat, she'll provide the maximum 1,200 attack buff. Not only that, but it also provides 15% bonus damage, and this buff lasts for 40 seconds. So basically she'll have 100% uptime on this Tanuki Wish buff. So yeah, we can basically see in a way this is very similar to the way Astro Yao works, effectively providing a massive attack buff as well as some, other types of damage multiplier buffs. In her case, a 15% bonus damage multiplier buff. I almost forgot to mention this, but Yuzuha's little raccoon buddy, every 11.5-ish seconds or so, will sometimes attack the enemy, and I'm not sure why it's not attacking anymore. Now that I'm recording it,
2,000 years later.
Is the little raccoon going to attack? Yes, there it goes. Finally. Finally. It is such a fickle thing. Sometimes it just doesn't bother attacking the enemy, and I can't quite figure out why that's the case. But here we go. Any second now, it should. Yeah, there we go. We just start blasting the enemy, doing comically negligible amounts of damage, but it is very cute. But that is not the only thing that makes Yuzuha really interesting and unique. We can also see here that actually, well, we're not really going to see here in this example, but basically you can see these DOT ticks that Yuzuha is dealing, the 1402. But what's really interesting about that is that those ticks do not actually contribute to the attribute anomaly damage formula. Instead, they just build up the gauge. We can see here that every 8 seconds or so, Yuzuha will perform this off-field aftershock coordinated attack when you hit the enemy, and the last hit of that is that Sparkle's max thing, which applies a pretty decent amount of electric anomaly. We'll hit the enemy again. We can see here, you'll see that went up by a pretty decent chunk. We can see here that Yuzuha is effectively just building up this electric anomaly gauge all on her own without any help from Yanagi, but there we go. We can just use Yanagi like that in order to deal a decent amount of shock damage. Now, speaking of those off-field aftershock damage attacks, she consumes these things, which are called sugar points, to perform that aftershock attack. So you do need to build up some of those sugar points in order to, keep up the aftershock attacks that she provides once every 8 seconds. And the way that she generates these is pretty simple. She generates 2 with her EX special, she generates 1 from her chain attack, she generates 2 from her ultimate, and she generates 1 from her defensive assist. But there is another really unique part of Yuzuha's kit which makes her a bit less of a passive character than Astro Yao, and that is this. She actually has a hold basic, which allows her to go into a defensive umbrella stance and parry the enemy's attack. So we can see here that we'll just do this, hold that, and we can parry it and follow it up with an assist follow-up attack. And we can see that the parry will also give us 1 of the sugar points. If I can actually get it, there we go. And we can follow up with an assist follow-up. And we also have access to an additional special, faster EX special attack. So definitely some little tricks here and there that add complexity to her character. Now, of course, those aren't the only buffs that she provides to her team, because why would they be? This is a Zenless Zone Zero character that we're talking about. So to translate this, basically, if you reach 200 Anomaly Mastery on Yuzuha, you will gain 20% additional Anomaly buildup on the entire team, as well as 20% additional attribute anomaly damage and disorder damage. In total, Yuzuha provides the following buffs. She provides up to a 1200 attack buff, 15% bonus damage. She provides up to 20% anomaly buildup for the entire team, and up to 20% anomaly and disorder damage for the entire team. She also provides 25 energy for teammates when she uses her ultimate, because she's a support character, and she provides good physical anomaly application herself. Finally, she provides off-field teammates elemental anomaly application without diluting their anomaly damage, and she provides whatever drive set that she equips buffs, which when needed is typically around 15 to 24% bonus damage. She also surprisingly provides a decent amount of daze, despite her low impact stat, thanks to her very high daze multiplier on defensive assist, as well as her hold basic defensive assist. And of course, she can provide whatever support Wenjin buff that she has equipped, which if you have her signature weapon, equates to 60 anomaly proficiency to the team, or many other buffs that the other support Wenjins can provide. As you can see, Yuzuha provides honestly a comical amount of buffs, making her absolutely excellent for buffing Anomaly related teams. Okay, I've got a very quick damage comparison buff example for Yuzuha, and I gotta be completely honest, it is very tricky to properly kind of showcase this because of the way that Anomaly works, but in this case, I decided to kind of go with a Vivian plus a Yanagi setup, and we can see here in this clip that on the left with no Yuzuha at all, in total the two characters did 686,974 damage disorder on Yanagi's, hold EX special. And meanwhile, with Yuzuha, that number jumps up to 1.5 million, which is a plus 122% disorder damage number. So an absolutely bonkers damage buff. And for this one, we're just using the Weeping Cradle. And meanwhile, on the right, we can see with her signature Wenjin, of course, this also does not include the additional Anomaly buildup that it provides. But in terms of just the disorder damage, that went up by another bit, and we can see it did plus 132% total disorder damage. So an absolutely massive amount of buffs provided by Yuzuha, and this is no surprise given that earlier list of buffs that we saw her provide. Yuzuha is a character who is basically what I would describe as the Astra Yao for Anomaly teams. Not only does she provide massive buffs for Anomaly related teams, and she helps apply a ton of additional Anomaly herself, Yuzuha can be played as simply just press EX special the character. However, in typical Zenless Zone Zero fashion, Yuzuha has a lot of additional complexity with 2 different EX specials, 2 different quote-unquote defensive assists, and even 2 different assist follow-ups. She is the perfect character for both casuals and sweat lords because of this. Okay, so for the showcases for this video, here is my Yuzuha's build. I did switch between the 4-piece Swing Jazz as well as the 4-piece Astral Voice and found them to be quite comparable to each other, although it just kind of depends, who's doing most of the damage or if the damage is a bit more split between your team. And we also have the 2-piece Phaethon's Melody with Anomaly Mastery, attack percent as such for the main stats. And finally for her Wenjin, we have her signature Wenjin for most of the showcases, although do keep in mind that the Weeping Cradle is a fantastic option for her as well, along with some of the other usual suspects, like, the Kaboom the Cannon or whatever else it might be. Okay, I've got a few quick showcases for you guys, and I didn't quite cover up on all the details earlier in her kit and stuff, because yeah, she is actually quite complicated for being such a simple character overall to actually use in practice. And one really neat thing about her is that we have special anomaly types like Frostburn with Miyabi, as well as Auric Ink for Yishuan. And, of course, Yuzuha will actually swap over to those special elements as well. So in this case, she will be applying a pretty hefty amount of Frostburn instead of, well, for example, ice or whatever it might be. So Yuzuha will match those kind of like special elements, whether it's Auric Ink or whether it's Frostburn. And when it comes to Miyabi specifically, I actually think that Yuzuha feels in some ways really uniquely suited for Miyabi, because one issue that I often had with Miyabi, you always felt like you were just a little bit off of when you wanted to apply Frostburn to the enemy. But thanks to Yuzuha's additional anomaly application that she herself provides, as well as, for example, the up to 20% buff that she provides in terms of anomaly application rate to Miyabi, now those Frostburns are coming way too fast, and honestly, perhaps there's actually too many Frostburns in this situation where, we're not even able to have Yanagi kind of keep up with the electric application rate for this. So perhaps actually switching it around and having Yanagi actually be the element for, Yuzuha to transform into, and for her to apply electric instead might be the way to go. But that's the thing with Yuzuha teams, is there's going to be an insane amount of for example, testing and min-maxing and optimization when it comes to disorder related stuff. And frankly, like with the amount of testing that I'm able to do in this amount of time, it's just not going to be anything near like optimized or anything like that. So please keep that in mind. And also, you know, me personally, I prefer the small brain playstyle of non-disorder, non-anomaly teams. So while yes, I personally will definitely be pulling for Yuzuha, my personal playstyle is kind of more the traditional DPS attack agent style characters. And yeah, I think a lot of people will be really curious about, for example, Yuzuha's performance in a Miyabi team. I won't definitively say that she's better than Astro Yao or whatever, because Astro Yao does provide crit damage buffs and stuff, which Miyabi can take advantage of, but she certainly, to me, feels a lot better with this team. But, you know, a lot more testing is definitely going to be needed from players much better than myself in terms of, like, you know, they're probably going to be able to delete the Butcher with a team like this. Whereas for me, I didn't quite manage to defeat it within the 3-minute time frame in the few attempts that I did with this team. But you can see here that whether you use Astro Yao or whether you use, for example, Yuzuha, Miyabi now has another alternative option, which is absolutely fantastic for Miyabi. And of course, you can swap out Yanagi for many different characters, like, for example, Vivian, or, you know, like other Anomaly agents who can apply, or even make a hyper carry Miyabi team if you so desire, to be completely honest. Because yeah, that's the thing about Yuzuha, is that she works really well with pretty much any Anomaly agent in the game. I haven't personally had much success with Grace as well as Bernice, but for some reason I just really suck with Grace, and I don't know why. Something about Grace I just don't vibe with, and that's been the case pretty much for my entire Zenless Zone Zero career. So yeah. Anyway, we also have another variation where we just run double Anomaly. And, you know, Miyabi, while she is definitely an Anomaly agent on paper, she to me kind of feels like an attack style agent where she mainly focuses on crit style damage instead of focusing on disorders as well as the Anomaly damage itself. And in this case, we can definitely see that you know, obviously Jane as well as Vivian, they are definitely going to be much more focused on the Anomaly type damage instead, the disorders as well as the assaults and stuff. And I really should be defensive assisting with anyone besides Jane, frankly, but, you know, skill issues, what can I say? And yeah, with how many teams I want to kind of go ahead and test, this is definitely, you know, just going to be like some kind of first impressions. And really, like, let's be real, you know, kind of the average player, they're not going to grind infinitely to perfect their rotations when they're just trying to farm some primo gems, as well as, you know, the other stuff that Deadly Assault and these gameplay modes provide. They're here to play a bit, you know, blow up some stuff with big numbers, big Anomaly numbers, and then get their rewards, have some fun, and then get out. But of course, it's going to be fantastic to see what the min-maxers and the sweat lords are going to come up with in terms of deleting these bosses with Anomaly style teams. But you can see here, lots of big disorder numbers, lots of big assault numbers. I mean, that is one great thing that Jane does, is that she is fantastic at assaulting her enemies. Whoa, look at those big numbers. I don't even think the Butcher was stunned during that. And actually, unfortunately, during this specific run, the big numbers were actually blocked off by the chain attack animation. So yeah, a little bit unfortunate, but we get to see some, you know, still some pretty very respectable damage numbers from Jane. And I definitely think Jane feels much better to use with Yuzuha, although do keep in mind that Yuzuha's physical Anomaly application will dilute Jane's damage, because some of, for example, Yuzuha's you know, application does still utilize her own offensive stats. In particular, like, for example, when she does some of the physical damage stuff, attacks, and not, you know, like her EX special, her ultimate, her chain, all these things apply physical Anomaly. And unfortunately, unlike her sparkle off-field attacks and things like that, those ones do count towards the Anomaly damage formula. I guess it's fortunate too, because when she's the only physical agent, or if she's the physical agent on a team like with Yishuan, then, you know, you're going to want those assaults to do some damage. I mean, they can't do literally 0 damage, which would be the case if Yuzuha didn't contribute anything and she's the only physical agent on the team. Anyway, I'm yapping way too much about that. That is a bit more of an advanced mechanic that hopefully some of you guys understand. But if not, basically, you know, I didn't want to dive into that mechanic too much in this specific video. Maybe in the full guide video I will, but again, that's, you know, a bit more of an advanced mechanic thing. It honestly doesn't really affect too much in terms of how we actually play her, but it does affect how we try to min-max her. But anyway, all that yapping about the previous team, we are now up to the Yixuan team, and I wanted to showcase her with Yixuan. Because Yixuan is more, I mean, I know she's a rupture agent that scales off of HP, so this is not really a great team for Yuzuha, but despite that, you can still use Yuzuha because Yuzuha provides, you know, the support Wenjin buff. I think I had the Roaring Right or the Weeping Cradle equipped. Probably the Weeping Cradle, but you know, I gotta be completely honest. It definitely wasn't her signature Wenjin, I will tell you that. And because of this, Yuzuha is able to still provide, you know, media attack buffs as well as a pretty decent amount of bonus damage buffs, as well as, you know, the usual quick assist and some parries and stuff. But I will admit that, okay, and one more thing is that because Yuzuha also fills up the Auric Ink Anomaly bar, this means that you will help a little bit with Yixuan's, you know, adrenaline economy. She'll get, you know, a bit more Auric Ink corruptions, which means a bit more Auric Ink, or sorry, adrenaline coming in from applying those anomalies. But anyway, I will admit that Yuzuha did not feel fantastic in this, you know, pure, more attack style crit based team, although you can definitely, like, you know, change Yuzuha's build to like more of a crit build so she does less, or, you know, more damage herself and things like that. But she's also usable, and that's what's kind of crazy about her, is that you can absolutely use her on traditional attack teams. And while I personally feel Astro Yao is still better for that role for most situations, Yuzuha excuse me, especially with attack scaling characters that can provide 1200 attack, is still going to provide fantastic buffs for those teams, even if the anomaly stuff is largely, you know, wasted for those teams. But for example, even the additional assaults could help a character like Nekomata or something like that. But yeah, I also did do a quick Jufufu run as well. And, you know, one big issue with that Yuzuha team was that I think you could have definitely reached 3 stun windows against the Marionette, but I only managed to pull off 2 in the one single run that I did. So do keep that in mind, and this is literally just a single run. And needless to say, the Jufufu team for me outperformed the Yuzuha team with Yixuan. So while still usable, personally, I feel like kind of the other characters are better for their traditional teams. So yeah, honestly, if you are an anomaly focused player, you've got, you know, Vivian, you've got Jane, to a lesser extent you have Miyabi. Miyabi can go with or without Yuzuha, but Yuzuha definitely feels fantastic with Miyabi as well. Honestly, Yuzuha is going to be one of the more valuable characters you can pull for your account if you have a lot of these anomaly focused characters. And also, sorry, I almost forgot to mention, but do check out I Am Rivenous. He's going to be releasing basically a full movie, which, you know, he put in a lot of effort, and it's going to contain, you know, a lot of great build info as well as an actual full guide for Yuzuha. And also check out Kana as well for a lot more testing and showcases of Yuzuha, because unfortunately I wasn't able to get to as many teams as I would have liked for this specific video. But those two, you know, they're good buddies of mine, and I highly recommend their content, so be sure to check them out. As always, I appreciate every single one of you. This is I Want to Lose, signing out.